Shortly following President Trump's Liberation Day, which culminated in a host of new tariffs, China responded by raising a matching percentage of tariffs against the United States. The move was criticized by many, including President Trump, as hasty and unnecessary. President Trump is pledging to raise tariffs even higher on China if they don't remove the 34% increase they placed on U.S. goods. We're here to discuss this. Gordon Chang, Distinguished Senior Fellow at the Gatestone Institute. He is an author of several books, including Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. You can follow him on X under the handle @Gordon G. Chang. Gordon, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tony.
So China has responded to President Trump's 34% tariffs with their own 34% additional tariffs against the United States. Are we on the verge of a trade war? What's going to happen here?
Well, it certainly looks like one, and it's escalating. As you point out, President Trump today said that he would impose an additional 50% tariff. That would take tariff rates on China to over 100%. If China did not take back its 34% tariff. And this is important because China right now is really out of ammunition. They're the smaller economy. Their economy, even with their inflated reporting, is less than 2/3 the size of ours. And China is the trade surplus trader. It last year had a $295.4 billion merchandise trade surplus with the U.S. Trade surplus countries can't really do much in a trade war. And the only thing they can try and do is intimidate President Trump to back down. But President Trump is not backing down. And so I think Xi Jinping is in a very difficult position right now.
I mean, their economy needs America to buy their products, right?
Especially now, because Xi Jinping has turned his back on consumption as the fundamental basis of the Chinese economy, which means his only way out of an increasingly serious situation is to export more. And he can't replace the U.S. market, the largest in the world. And President Trump is just closing it off. So right now, Xi Jinping just does not have any options.
This is a double-edged sword, though, and I'm going to talk more about this a little bit later, for President Trump, because America has in many ways become a consumption nation. We consume. We've become really almost addicted to these cheaper products coming out of China. So maybe how long can the American economy, you think, hold out without the cheaper products coming from China until there's some type of resolution?
We can hold out for a long time. Now, politically, it would be difficult for President Trump, but he doesn't face something until, let's say, the midterms. So he's got a lot of time in which to have his moves bear fruit. And by the way, this has got to be done because we're in an unsustainable situation. America accounts for almost half of the world's merchandise trade deficits. China accounts for almost half of the world's merchandise trade surpluses. This just is not acceptable from any number of different viewpoints. And so I think President Trump gets high marks, whatever happens. He gets high marks for trying to deal with this, something that his predecessors let slide for decades.
So it's something that at some point in time, if we want to have a sustainable economy of our own, we have to address this trade deficit.
Yes. I mean, and, I understand Wall Street's reaction, but, as Americans, we've got to ask ourselves, do we really think that we could get out of decades of misguided, really horrible trade policy and not bear some cost? Of course, we're going to have to do that. And President Trump has decided, I think, on the best way, which is to make sure that China doesn't take over the American economy and take over the economies around the rest of the world. So, yes, this is the right move. It may look really ugly right now, but it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, when you've been apathetic to situations like this, and I would throw in, obviously it's not a part of this tariffs, but the deficit and the debt that America has right now. At some point, we're going to have to take on that issue as well, and it's not going to be pleasant all the way around, but long term, it's absolutely essential. I want to go beyond the economic impact here for just a moment, Gordon, and I want to get your thoughts on how the tariffs might impact China's plans toward Taiwan.
This we ought to be concerned about because Xi Jinping right now has an economy that's not growing at the 5.0% pace that they reported for last year. It's probably about zero. And with the actions that we have seen over the last couple of weeks, it's probably heading to deep contraction territory. That means Xi Jinping may decide whether it's Taiwan, Philippines, Japan, South Korea, India. He very well may decide to use it rather than lose it. But also we know that there are signs of instability at the top of the Communist Party. The infighting is getting intense. Xi Jinping may decide that war is in his interest, not to rally the Chinese people, because Xi Jinping knows the Chinese people do not want war. But he might decide a war is in his personal interest to prevent other Communist Party figures from challenging or maybe even deposing him. So right now, I think the situation is extremely tense across China's periphery.
So given the political instability, economic instability growing, this may prompt him to take military action to, in some ways, distract, right?
Yes, I'm actually more concerned about something. Not that Xi Jinping wakes up some morning and says, I'm invading the Philippines. But we've seen some very dangerous provocations in the last couple of weeks against South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Philippines, and Australia. And if one of those escalations goes wrong, I don't think Xi Jinping will be able to control escalation, because right now he has configured China's political system so that only the most hostile answers are considered to be acceptable, which means if something starts, it's going to continue.
Well, Gordon, we'll have to leave it there, and we'll continue it on another time at another date. Thanks so much for joining us. Always great to see you, my friend.